I think there are thousands and thousands of couples that get married every year with unrealistic expectations. Maybe it begins with the weirdness of Western culture dating. I think sometimes Western culture dating is just a step above used car sales. Because when I'm dating, the last thing I want is that person to actually get to know me because I'm trying to sell myself to that person. 6 months into marriage, the woman is crying, "This is not the man I married." Well, it is the man you married. The man you dated was a fake. I was one of those guys. I got married with completely unrealistic expectations. We had no idea as a couple the dark things that we were going to face that I brought into marriage. I was a very angry man. I was in the midst of destroying my life and my ministry, and I didn't know it. I had no idea. We had no idea when we were facing marriage that that's what we were going to face. We had no idea of the things that we brought into that relationship that were destructive to its unity and its peace. God rescued me by His grace. But I want to say this. Here's a biblical view of marriage. It's a flawed person married to a flawed person in a fallen world. Are you encouraged yet? But with a faithful God. I think we tend, in the heat of romance and the joy of the relationship, to minimize the reality of sin in our hearts that is so destructive to marriage, and the reality of the brokenness of our world. We live in a world that does not operate the way God intended, and the troubles of that world will enter the door of your marriage. It's important to have high goals for your marriage. Your goals should be as high as God's designed for that relationship. But you must have realistic expectations. You must understand the things that you bring into that relationship that are destructive to what it could be. Perhaps our struggle with expectations is really rooted in a misunderstanding of the purpose for marriage. The ultimate purpose for marriage is not human happiness. Now that sounds weird to people because a lot of people get married to become happy or to find identity or to have meaning and purpose. Now the reason we can talk firmly about the purpose for marriage is because marriage has a creator. Marriage wasn't a human idea, it was God's idea. And when you create something with a purpose. And so God has a purpose for this relationship. And if you would blow back up again to helicopter level and look at what the Bible says about this relationship, the ultimate purpose of marriage is actually not happiness, it's holiness. It's the radical reformation, transformation of the human heart to be what God meant it to be. And so what God does is He puts us in this comprehensive relationship that will bring us to the end of ourselves, because that's a good thing. So we will seek His grace together, and in seeking His grace, begin to grow together to be what He created us to be. That's what marriage is meant to be. So all those differences in marriage are not in the way of God's plan. All those things we got to deal with, they're not in the way of God's plan. They're part of God's plan. Because if He wanted it just to be predictable and easy, He could have done that. But that's not His plan. His plan is there's something better than happiness. It's holiness. It's walking with Him in the way that He created us to be. When a husband's doing that and a wife is doing that, they're doing that together, they have the happiest of relationships.